Welcome to Building Sustainability Podcast with me, your host, Jeffrey Hart, aka Jeffrey the Natural Builder. Every fortnight, join me as I talk to designers, builders, makers, dreamers and doers, exploring the wide world of sustainability in the built environment by talking to wonderful people who are doing excellent things.
Hello to you, wherever you are. Welcome to episode 89. Today, I'm in conversation with John Mullaney. This episode was recorded in September of 2022 in the stunning Journeyman cabin at Brookhouse Woods. I was at Brookhouse Woods for the Bowl Gathering, which is a green woodworking festival. And then I stuck around afterwards, managing to snatch this conversation with John. But I also stuck around and made the chair that I'm actually sat on right now. I will put a link to all of the courses that they run at Brookhouse Woods and the cabins in the show notes. So I would say that John Mullaney is one of the cornerstones of the UK green woodworking world. He's carved himself, good pun, the niche of being the shrink pot guy, but he's so much more than that. And a quick peruse of his Instagram feed and you'll find that he's passionate about sharing tips and inspiration for whatever he's into, whether that's craft or music or a variety of other inspirational things. So we start this conversation with a little bit of John's background. We talk through craft origins, how it's developed, shrink pots specifically, decoration and experimentation, and then heading on to John's other passions, which are music and learning theory. Personally, I found the conversation wholly inspiring, so I hope you do too. We actually talked for over an hour and a half. So there is a 20 minutes of bonus audio on the Patreon page. That is patreon.com/building sustainability. And in that bonus audio, John talks about his future developments and aspirations. So speaking of Patreon, a huge thank you goes out to Luke Kirkley, who will be listening to this from his tractor in North Carolina. Luke has supported the podcast over on the Patreon site. And hopefully now Luke is enjoying all of the bonus audio and all of the warm, fuzzy glow from supporting future episodes of this podcast. That is it for me. I'm back at the end. Enjoy the treat that is Mr. John Mullaney.
I'm obviously from an Irish immigrant family, so from farming stock originally, and so they came over to this country to work down the coal mines in West Yorkshire. So I'm from Wakefield, West Yorkshire. So I'm like the third generation coal miner that all worked at the same pit, which is Charleston. It's a West Yorkshire coal field.
Was it always assumed that was what you were going to do?
Well, actually, when I left school in 1981, and I was 16. It was a recession. It was late 70s, early 80s recession. So there weren't much choice, and I went for loads of tests for jobs like in engineering, what have you, and they're like 40 or 50 kids at a time doing like those tests where you've got to like problem solve and things.
Oh yeah.
I've got the name for it.
Like the Mensa.
That those sort of tests and that so there were very few jobs in that. But my dad got me a job at Pitt. So I started underground when I was 16. He started underground when he was 14, and my granddad started underground at the same Pitt when he was 12. So wow. that's how that in just a couple of generations. That's how that progressed.
Yeah.
I'll coal miner by birthright, if you like. And then when the coal mine shut in 1993, I spent a brief period working for British Rail on the tracks, on the signals and telecommunications side of it, whilst I was doing the test to get in the fire service.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. So I joined the fire service in 1994, January 1994. But I've always liked doing practical things and that, and making things and been outdoors and what have you.
Yeah.
So luckily, the shift systems that I worked in the fire service allowed me to have plenty of spare time. And I sort of, when I moved house from my first house to my second house, it needed quite a lot of work doing. And I put an extension and I got into doing as much of the building work myself that I could.
Yeah.
Right. So I learnt brickwork, groundwork, drainage, roofing, joinery, and of all the disciplines that I sort of learnt while I was doing my extension, I clicked with joinery, bench joinery. Mm-hmm. So I tooled myself up to make anything basically. I've still got all the tools to be able to make anything, bench, and then fit it and what have you. So yeah, I really got heavily into joinery. Did a little bit of site and bench joinery at night school on an evening. Just to get my paper, so if I went on sites or anything, I'd be fully qualified and everything.
So were you thinking of that being your career?
As a secondary employment, because like I say, with due to the systems that I'm working on in the fire service, you effectively work 2 days on, 2 days, 2 nights, and then 4 days off. So right. even on the nights, you're free during the daytime. So a lot, they call it raking off. A lot of firemen used to do secondary employment, and I just like building. But like I say, I went down the joinery route, but then I wanted to be a little bit more creative. So I sort of moved more towards sort of cabinet making. Oh, yeah. More so you were having like a creative input in towards it. So then I started looking at obviously woodworking forums, and and interestingly, I don't know why, but I just saw this thing, and somebody posted a topic area on a woodwork forum about using axes in joinery. Yeah, and then anyway, following on the thread, somebody then mentioned Gransford. I definitely remember reading Gransford's making a spoon with an axe. I thought, wow, that's. Making a spoon with an axe. That sounds interesting. And, making a utilitarian item like that. So anyway, I had a little look online, see if I could find anybody that were offering, any advice on how to make spoons with using axes and that. And funnily enough, I found Robin Wood.
Oh, right.
Yeah. Who was offering courses, making a spoon knife in the glorious Peak District countryside of Edale. So I thought, well, that sounds, ticks quite a few boxes of what I like doing. So I turned up at Robin. It was actually at his house, and he'd got like a little workshop at the side of his house in Edale. No idea what sort of tools, no idea what to expect. I was going to be making a spoon, and I was just blown away with. Actually, it turned out that I was on his very first course. Though me and 2 other participants in his little tiny workshop at the side of his house, learning to make spoons, and I had no idea what tools we were going to be using or anything. So when we, but I was blown away by how accurate you could be with an axe. 'Cause to me, an axe had been like a splitting kindling while you're underground, so that you take a bread bag full of sticks on, so you can light your fire. You coal fire for the next day, So that's what everybody did out pit. They come out of the pit with a bread bag full of sticks. Everybody, yeah, because it's amazing how many you can ram into a mother's pride bread bag. Actually, if you keep putting one in the middle, it just expands, and it's like a big billet. Anyway,
why were there sticks? Why
well, for props, for the roof supports, yeah, right. And that's.
So you were taking down the roof supports? No,
not taking them down. But I was all spare bits of wood about because you had to saw them to length to fit it to fit it to a certain gap and what have you. There were loads of. In fact, I'm digressing slightly, but most of my wood that I use, it's things. It's like basically chubbing rights. They've given you permission to go by the council to go pick anything that falls on the floor or anything that's on the wood pile actually, because the council clears the trees that have fallen over or the potentially dangerous at roadsides and what have you. And they stack them in a certain place, and the guy that showed me around there says you take whatever you want.
So you learnt that sort of foraging.
Yeah. Well, you do, don't you? I mean, with the foraging and that, when people know that what you do, is so and so species any good to you? And because it's green woodworking and you want to, work with green wood, there's no point in having tons and tons of wood. So most of the time I say no, and the more you get into it and you realise what stuff you want, you get more selective, don't you? And I'm sure you're the same, mate. But getting back. Oh, sorry, what I was going to say is that, because quite so much wood was used underground for supporting the roof from collapsing on top of you. The mines are actually quite really self-supportive. They were planted with mostly softwood, but so around my area there's lots of woodland that's now council that used to be supplying the coal mines. There's quite a lot of that actually, but they're now thinning it out and selling it as standing stuff so that can return it to deciduous broadleaf woodland.
Nice.
That's why there's quite, even though we're an industrial process and industrial area, there's quite a lot of open spaces that I can explore and plenty of wood to be able to go. Yeah. So that's that digression, but yeah.
So
back to Robin Wood.
Yes. So you were there on your first.
First
day.
Yeah. No idea what to expect. I didn't no idea who Robin Wood was, and I sort of just blown away with how accurate you could be with an axe, and then when the spoon knife come out, I've never seen one of that. I didn't no idea, but what you could do with just simple technology, and the thing that really really hooked me into the green woodworking thing is the thought that you can take a tiny little backpack, put an axe, a straight knife, and a curved knife into your bag, and come out with as many spoons or things, a lovely utilitarian object, with no technology whatsoever. Because, like I say, I'd come from, building up a workshop with I've got a lathe actually, a powered lathe, planer thicknesses and sand, all industrial things that are, creating dust and noise. But and I'm sure you're the same, mate. Just being able to just the lovely green wood out, how you can with a nice sharp tool you can peel it off. So yeah, and I always attribute why I'm here today. We're in lovely Herefordshire at a fantastic bowl gathering, aren't we? What we just had with Will St Clair and Yoav and the rest of the crew at the ball gathering in the UK, and now see where we've got to, because when I did it was 2007 when I actually did that first course with Robin.
Okay.
And even I mean, it's 15, 16 years ago. There were very little choice in the tools that you could get, and the only sweet spoon knife that he recommended was one from a Swedish guy called Bo Helgesson, and his trade name was Helges. That's what's stamped on the knives. And apart from that, was only the audible Frost Swan that needed lots of work to get it. And I've never even owned one of them because of the horror stories that people tell me about trying to make them work, basically.
Yeah.
But Ben Arford was making a few as well. But the main one was this Swedish guy called Helges. So, from then to now, when you come to these events and you see the standard of green woodworking, I mean, it really has snowballed exponentially. I'm always blown away by, seeing the young guys come through and girls coming through, making, pushing each other and like standing on each other's shoulders and that. I know what you think, mate. But
absolutely.
Yeah. Like me and you've just been here with guys like that. Oscar Rush, the young blacksmith, 19 years old and turning out fantastic adzes and axes.
And then Nama,
the Israeli girl, coming over with I think she's about the same.
Detail.
Yeah. Detail that I can't even see because of my age. I have to put like double glasses on to be able to see them. Yeah. But it's and not only that, but we say Nama there, so you're bringing Israel into it. When you come to these events now, I mean, obviously, I've been to Sweden. I've been to Sweden, but and one in Brittany actually that Jane Mickleborough runs. But when I go to Spoonfest and see people from Australia, New Zealand, the Americas, all over the world, isn't it? You know, it's a phenomenon. Like I said, when I'm thinking back to in Robin Wood's little workshop in 2007, and you could name on a little piece of A5 everybody that was green woodworking in certainly in the UK anyway.
Yeah. How on that first experience, how did you feel about working with greenwood rather than if you've been making cabinetry?
Hook straight away, mate. Yeah, the fact that the very first thing that I made rather than just taking a billet and just practicing safe knife grips and what have you, was a hook, was like a coat hook made with a natural crook from a branch, which we went outside and we were still in Robin's garden, just cut a little bit of a shrub that were his garden, and half an hour later we'd got like a fully finished hook that you could hang your coat on and it was perfectly functioning. So and like I sort of mentioned, Jeff, the fact that there's no electricity, no power, no noise, no dust, and a sharp knife just slides. It's almost therapeutic when you slide
totally
into
therapeutic.
In fact, I've seen people, and I think it used to be a thing actually, and like people like have worry beads. Well, that's very similar to just like not making anything, but just whittling, just get a calming meditative process. You know what I mean? And I'm pretty sure that is a thing, But I was immediately hooked, and like I said, the fact that you could just like really low technology, just to go out in the woods and come back with a finished item, or an item that you could use straight away, I found mind blowing. But To move on from that initial experience, like I said, I always attribute getting started to Robin, but also apart from the fact that he showed me safe knife grips, set me on my way, it was also the networks that he's able to access, because he is well known within Greenwood for basically bringing back pole lathe turning in the UK from its extinction with the George with passing of George Laley and what have you. So he's done a hell of a lot in setting up the Heritage Crafts Association. He's done a lot to bring the green woodworking discipline forward. Yeah. So after I'd done that first course, I really, really enjoyed it. I might have made a few spoons and things like that, and spatulas and what have you. But I wouldn't say I was necessarily hooked at that time. But then he did a few more courses, did Robin, but he brought over a guy called Fritjof Runhal, who was a Swedish. I'll call him a spoon carver, but he carved bowls. But everything he carved, I coveted. I was absolutely when I actually met Fritjof, I watched his processes. But when I was exposed to his work, I was absolutely blown away with. They were just like fantastic miniature sculptures, top grade sculptures. That I watched him make one. It wasn't even like, let's see how quick we can be. It was like, can we just film you doing a spoon from start to finish, Fritjof? Yeah. And it just so happened that it was roughly bang on 30 minutes. Right. To a lovely finish, faceted finish with scalloped furrows in the bowl of the spoon. And I was just that from that moment, from meeting Fritjof, that really, really energized me to really want to push myself to see where it could go. Yeah. And I've been doing. I'm quite humble. We were talking before this recording about. I feel like a bit of an imposter. I get a bit of an imposter syndrome,
which is ridiculous.
Yeah. Well, to me, I'm just like a fireman who happens to do a little bit whittling in my spare time and what have you. So, but then I'm still blown away that if I put a picture of something up on Instagram, there might be somebody in New Zealand saying, would you ship it to New Zealand? Like, what? You know, which is partly the power of the internet, but also it's like, oh, thank you, you know. But if anybody was, looking at craft, you know, if they start looking at pages of people that makes things similar to myself, if they were really interested in getting started within the craft, I've the only instruction that I've ever had that I've sort of would say I've needed is having that initial little course with Robin, just getting a few safe knife grips, you know, pushing and pulling, and how to use an axe safely, etiquette, you know, being aware of your surroundings and everything like that. That's the only course that I've ever been on that I've thought, and if I hadn't had that, things would have been dangerous.
Right.
And basically, I learned how to handle tools safely, and all I've done after that is sort of upscaled and diversified the things I make, re-employing the same sort of skills that I initially learned then. So I would strongly advise people, just it only needs to be a day or a couple of days with an experienced tutor, just to, you know, make yourself safe, basically, because you know, I've been at these sort of events and we've seen little axe. Well, I said little axe cuts. We've seen axe cuts and little knife cuts and what have you, and they can be avoided just by, you know, having a good set of guiding principles that become subconscious. You know,
that sort of thinking, like, if it's gonna go wrong,
yes,
what's in the way?
Yeah, like after you become experienced, after a while, you'll come to do a cut and you think, oh, this don't feel right, and that's because there's something, because you train and your experience tells you if you feel like that, it probably is wrong, and don't do that. Do some, you know, find another, because there's, you know, when I try and teach green woodworking, instead of trying to spoon feed people, I try and teach principles rather than specifics, because I don't know what set of tools somebody else has got, but if you can describe A, where you're trying to end up, and B, what you're trying to avoid, and the pitfalls that you might reach on the way, the tools that I use, maybe they haven't even got access to those tools, or they might have a tool that can do that in a better way. So I always say, look for principles rather than specifics, and you probably will be able to find a more efficient way for yourself, or use a different tool to get to that same endpoint, you know, safely and effectively. And also, I always say the best question, you know, if you've got a tutor in front of you and they're trying to tell you something, is why. If they're saying, right, do this, and you say why, and they say, oh, I don't know, that's just how you do it. No, well, then they don't. If they can't tell you why, then they're not a good tutor. Yeah. If you can, and if you can tell them why, if all the why questions are answered, that's when they can apply maybe their own tool or their own methods to get to that point where you wanted to get to. If you know what I'm trying to say.
No, totally.
Yeah.
I always think I want that with cooking recipes. You know, it's like, why are you doing this for 2 minutes and then adding this? Like, why are you not adding them at the same time? What is that 2 minutes giving you? And if I knew that, I think I would. Like,
and the reason for that, there may be 2 or 3 different ways that you can, you know, avoid the pitfall or whatever it is. And so that's why, and I think if you go away trying to remember, oh, how did he tie that, every specific detail, rather than what he was trying to avoid was going up that grain there. So I need to avoid that. So how can I avoid that? You know, rather than, what did he have? He went in at that so many degrees. Exactly. And you know, because my mining background, a lot of everything you did underground, you're within a confined space, and you're like half a mile underground and then 2 miles in from the bottom of the shaft. So you've got to improvise. No 2 areas at the coal mine are the same, so you've got to improvise a lift. How am I going to get that big lump onto that carriage? So I've got like a background of improvisation. that's why I don't have lots of holding devices and that. I mean, people laugh at me when I was at Spoonfest. I was on top of me. I was doing a shrink pot, and I was stood on top of me spoon mule thing.
Yeah,
and they were all laughing at me, but I got it done. You know what I mean? Because I ain't got all the kit that I got at home. I just found a way to improvise. So yeah, so that's why I try and teach principles rather than specifics.
Yeah,
you know. Yeah. So yeah.
How's it in your own kind of craft? How's it developed over the years?
Yeah, well, that's interesting. So, yeah, I would have said I was just doing spoons and things. I mean, the Bible then was very much the Willy Sundqvist, the Swedish woodcarver book,
the blue book,
the blue
yes,
book that got out of print, ended up getting reprinted. So I think it was going £100 at one bit, you know, when it was out of print and unavailable, it was the Bible, and I was inspired by that, I must admit. But it was a good reference to drop back to. So yeah, in the early days, it was very much very much spoons and what have you. But on that very first course that I did with Robin, it got this pot thing that he had his coffee and tea in and what have you. And it was really interesting because the body of it and the lid was all made of wood, and it got like a leather strap, so the lid stayed, you know, like a leather hinge, if you like, it's kept it together. Now I was looking at that's interesting, and I said, "What is it? What's this then?" Because it looked like it was a solid branch, branch of wood. In fact, it was like a natural branch, and I said, "We're talking about it as a conversation piece," and it said, "Oh, it's a shrink pot. It's made by a guy called Peter Kahidi." An Hungarian guy, as it turned out, and so we got talking about it, looked at it, and it basically it's telling me the technology behind it, that it's a green branch that's hollowed out, and then there's a little groove put in it, and then a little disc is inserted, so it was like a glueless joint. So you got a vessel.
So the wood shrinks
onto through as you hollow it out, the wet branch, and it's a dry disc of wood that's shaped to about 1/4 of an inch thickness. So it's like a base of a box, basically.
Yeah.
So that's dry, but because the hollowed out piece of branch is wet, and as it's losing its moisture, it's shrinking in size. It shrinks about the disc and forms a seal. Not necessarily a waterproof seal, or it's definitely not airtight, but a really rigid seal, which means. But I thought. Because I'd come from like doing joinery in a classroom, making these fancy joints and that to have a glueless joint that were natural and just as good, just as strong as any other, you know, just as effective as any of those other joints. I was just blown away with that, and so I said to Robbie, I didn't know how to make them or anything, and I said to Robin, "Have you made any of these?" He says, "No, but." We talked about what it was involved, and he actually spoke about offering that as a course as an addendum to the spoon carving courses that he were offering. But I think he offered it, and because nobody knew what they were or anything, there was no interest, and it never got off the ground.
Yeah,
because I was interested to have a go at it. I thought, that's a shame. Like, so I'll come, but it's not financially viable. It's only just me and you, like, which is fair enough, you know. So I thought, well, I'll have a look at internet to see if I can. But there was nothing on internet on how to make them or anything. So I thought, well, it's a hollowed out piece of branch with a groove in, with a bit. So I sort of reverse engineered it and started making those. And I sort of, obviously, I spent a fair bit of time with failing by not having the groove deep enough, or leaving the walls of the vessel too thick, using the wrong species, and so anyway, I ironed all that out, and I've sort of got a decent body of knowledge together now. So I have been teaching it a little bit. So I'm sort of pretty well known at UK for shrink pots, I suppose. But because of those original skills that I learned with Robin, with just how to use a knives and axes safely. you can make almost it's governed by your own imagination, really. So I'll like I say, I'll go out into the woods and I'll find some windfalls and that, and it's almost like it'll speak to you what it wants to be, you know. I sort of get inspired by just looking at a piece of wood, and often when I put a piece of wood on the chopping block, I've no idea what I'm going to make with it. But my principle is, I want to make the biggest item I can with a given piece of wood. I don't see any point in you know, getting like a spoon template, putting it on a big log of wood, and then most of it ends up getting thrown away. So I do try and make the biggest item out of a given piece of wood that I can. So very loose. Luckily, I'm not a professional woodworker, so even if it ends up being a piece of fire, it doesn't really matter. So I'm quite privileged in that I can experiment and play about and come up with ideas. Yeah,
I think that's huge, isn't it? The freedom to fail,
and that's what
which is learning.
Yeah, which is why I say I'm privileged to be able to do that. I know, you know, a lot of the guys that are, you know, trying to eke out a living, they've got to try and find out what sells, what where a demand is, and service that demand, and maybe have to do, you know, make more multiples than they'd enjoy making if they had a choice, you know, and stick to briefs and that as well. So yeah, and like when I'm another thing that I do, I make quite big bowls, but it's all hand hewn and that. But I've got to be. I'm not a young man anymore, and I've got to be a little bit careful with overusing certain muscle groups and creating RSI type injuries. So what I'll do, I tend to move around. So I'll make some big items where I'm using quite a lot of big levers and things, then batch that, and then I'm starting to ache a little bit. I'm starting to get a few pins and needles. I'll move on to something. I'll move on to maybe spoons or coat hooks or something that's using slightly different muscle groups and maybe not as much power grips and what have you. So yeah, I don't like to just make the same thing all the time. But yeah, very much. And what I do like doing, and I'm sure a lot of people are the same that are involved in the sort of crafts that I do, is like get into like a flow state of making something. And I did that when it was leading up to Spoonfest. I got into a flow state of evolving designs of a spoon, and I've got a bag full at home, and they'll stay in that bag forever because I'll just start trying different axe cuts and then different shapes, and then getting and eventually dropping out. Oh yeah, I really like that shape, and then really honing in on that shape, and then testing it because I'm one of these, mate. If it's not utilitarian, it can look whatever. It's not going to go out of I'm not going to put it out there. So I try and I also remain loyal to the utilitarian aspect of it. But yeah, and then honing on design. So I'll get to a design that I think, yeah, I really like that. Make a few of those, then get bored and move on again. And then I'm like that. I'll just, you know, people show me things. Oh, this is what. Did I make that? Because I'm one of these that just constantly keeps evolving, mate.
Nice. I think you're pretty well known for decorating. Things. Yeah, like milk paints.
Actually, with the milk paint thing, I can attribute that to Gerard Dahl coming over and showing us at the Spoonfest how to make milk paint from pigment plus, you know.
Yeah.
Which I haven't done. I've never done that. Nadine, our friend Nadine Grundy, she does a lot of that. Mm-hmm. You know, she makes it from freshers and fresh ingredients. But I've just so the B to that one is the person that the people that introduced me to it as a finish really is Adam Hawker on his spoons and Yoav Al-Kayem. Oh, I think I spoke to Yoav because I saw Adam and Yoav at a Bodger's Ball gathering, and the first time I've seen the because the milk paint is usually quite a matte finish and quite organic. A lot of the hues are quite organic and subtle, you know. And I was sort of picking at Yoav's brains, and he was saying that it's food safe, and it dries really quickly because that before that I was using artists oils, and it taking like weeks for them to dry, and it would put me off trying to put paints on spoons and that. So so Yoav introduced me to the milk paints and told me the source that he were getting them from. It was just basically add water, and so I played about with that and various texturing techniques and scorching and incise carving through the painted surfaces and that. So I should imagine people that know that I've done quite a lot of that.
I would say they're very artistic and like very creative,
which is
I could see you being uncomfortable.
Because I've never had any artistic training or anything whatsoever. Like I say, I left school when I was 16, and but some people say, "Oh, you're an artist." Well, I'm just messing about, and I can't draw for toffee, but it's just experimentation, and I don't. You're right. I am uncomfortable about it when the artistic word is used, because genuinely artistic. But I mean, when I see people like there's a girl who I met at. Actually, first at Bodger's Ball, then at Spoonfest. I met Lydia Latham, and she does cornrows but it's all freehand. She draws directly on with absolutely a fantastic artistic hand. When I see work like that, that's artistic, Mm-hmm. And did you see the tucker ball that I had decorated by Viv Walker?
Yes,
yeah,
work is exceptional.
Yeah. In fact,
Viv, not to diss your tucker ball.
no. But Viv's at this event that we're at now. Well, she has been. We've just wrapped up. But Viv's an archaeologist, and she's really part of her study was into Celtic iconography and Celtic knotwork and that. And she's putting that onto her work, and absolutely fantastic. Again, great. I would say how these people are bringing up the craft, like, but. Yeah, when people said to me, "Oh, it's so artistic, John," but I do like, and I'll evolve from that. I'll try something else, and I do like. For me, where I'll make something, and if I look at photograph, because I put everything on Instagram just purely as a photographic record of what I've made. And if I look back at, maybe if I went more than 12, I'm like, oh God, look at the state of that. Look at I make it, and then as soon as I've made it, that's it. That's done. I've sort of not fall out of love with it, but I park it up. That's why I'm quite happy to give things away. I might have spent hours and hours making it, but I forget about that. When somebody says, "How much do you want for that?" I'll say, 20 quid. But if I rewound the day after I'd made it and I put 40 hours into it, I thought, hang on a minute, that's 20 pence an hour or something. But the benefit is for me, and I think when you spoke, I did hear your podcast with Dave Cockcroft. It's the benefit is for you is it's a slow craft. It's meditative. You're forgetting about the rest of the world, and that's why it's sort of going back to what you said about why did I like green woodwork. It's just it's an enjoyable process, and I did say a quote. I can't remember where I saw it, but it was something like I think it was the guy in America, the woodsmith. Roy Underhill, is it? Roy Underhill? Yeah, he used to have a series on American television. And I think he said something, if you don't enjoy the process, you've got nothing else left. Because if you make something and you sell it, what have you got? You've got nothing. You might have a bit of money, but what you've got is the enjoyment of making it. So if you enjoy making it, if you find something that you enjoy doing, that is the benefit. And that's why when I'm making things, like I say, it's a slow process. It's good for your mental health, and all the time I'm doing it. That's why my work evolves, actually, because what if I tweak that and look, there's a knot there. Take that out. What's going to be left? And you get happy accidents and you stumble upon shapes and things like that. It's that's why the things. The first things that if I have a table full of my work and I've really done a load of fancy carving and painting on a shrink pot or something. And next to it, I've got one that had like a dead branch on it. And it's got a knotty burr on it, and it's pointing sideways. And it's just basically I've hollowed it out and put a lid on it.
Yeah.
How much is that one? It's fantastic. They always go for the ugly duckling, you know what I mean? That tends to be the ones that get picked up first because there's all quaking on you.
Yeah.
Which in a way it's great because that's a natural, it's a natural look. But yeah, I don't know where I started off going there, but that's the process. It's all about the process.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Look, where do you get your sort of inspiration from?
Where do I get my inspiration from? I would say in the early days it was from Fritjof's work.
Yeah.
Looking at a finished product. But I would say where do I get inspiration from? The wood itself, really. I'm a deep thinker. I can't stop thinking. So it's not necessarily inspiration, but it might be something like, right, I've got this piece of this pole of wood. I can make a few shrink pots out of that end, but it's tapering quite small at top, but it's nice wood. It'd be a shame to throw it away. So what can I make from this? It's like thinking backwards, really. And then, so when I'm making the shrink pots, effectively what I get is the coppice poles that are actually up from underneath overhead electric lines that have been so that they got felled every so many years. So a pole would taper quite a long way and still be usable wood. And I thought, well, what about these little bits at top here? So I ended up making some like tiny little shrink pots that were just like, I don't know, as big as the bottom of a glass or something, even smaller than that, a watch face or something like that. And I sort of said, there might be like a little ring box. And I took them to fairs, and they were very easy to make. And put them on the table, and ring pots, just to give them a name.
Yeah.
And what happened was, a few people within the community actually were like taking them. So I'm getting married next year. That'll be fantastic for my bands. Bloody hell, wow. My stuff being at somebody's wedding, that's take it, and I give these things away, So that's just like one example of, but yeah, just by looking and from a lot of it from nature. I do like, what I would like to get into is letter carving. Because I've got a friend who carves in stone, actually. But I'd like to get into that. So yeah, there are people that, but it's more just my own imagination, really.
Yeah.
I try not to, overlook it because I've got so many ideas that just come to me. I don't try and overly interact with other people's things. I like to buy other people's things.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't say I get particular inspiration from other finished pieces, really. I don't. Not consciously, anyway. You obviously take everything in subconsciously, don't you? I would like to say another person actually that very seldom gets mentioned is a Czech Republic guy called Karel. I think it's Hekrle, Herkrle or something like that.
Yeah,
I'm not.
We'll put a link.
I'm not. Put a link, mate, please, because he's a lovely guy and he uses a lot of natural texture.
Yeah.
But every item that he makes is in the Czech Republic. It's so artisan. Tool marks, natural cleaving, or even natural underbark, even maybe bark on. But it's so organic, his work. I would have to reference him as a bit of inspiration, definitely.
Yeah.
And in fact, when I do anything along those natural lines and heavily textured pieces, I try to link him in as much as I can. Because I really do like his work, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it might be worth actually mentioning that in the UK we've got quite a few events now, haven't we, that we've got access to. And like we're currently at the Bowl Gathering, which is in Bromyard. There's a northern one that's in Durham. And we sort of meet in the UK and share all these ideas. The Spoonfest, obviously, in Edale, which is in midsummer. But then there's Spoontown. I think you went to Spoontown.
I went to Spoontown.
I didn't go to that, and I think you all had a good time down there.
Yeah, it was great. Yeah, like a really beautiful event.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to seeing it. Develop and
run by Jill Swan. Yeah. And it's popped up at a few of those as Carol. And I've been lucky enough to spend time watching him. Really, really artisan, but a really sweet guy. Where else do we go? They're the main ones, aren't they?
Bodgers?
Oh yeah, of course, there's the Bodgers Bowl as well. Yeah. So there's a lot of, and that's the good thing as well. Particularly this one, this bowl gathering that we're at, it's been a fantastic hub of knowledge sharing, whereby there's people willing to share what in the past would be called trade secrets, which are just techniques that benefits everybody. And honestly, I've been blown away by the fact that you get all. It was Sharif Adams, isn't it, that brought this all together initially, with a view to idea sharing.
We'll be back after a quick break.
If you're looking for all things BMX racing, you've found the right podcast. Here at Lane 8 BMX Podcast, I'll speak to the local racer, the national racer, and even the Olympic level racers. I'm talking kids to the weekend warriors and much more. So get comfortable, turn up the volume, and remember to snap on green.
And I've been lucky enough. I'm not a pole layer turner, but I've been lucky enough because this is heavily a turning event, really, to see how they've brought each other on and spurred each other on to greater and greater levels of achievement.
It's a showcase for a community sharing and making
ideas, as well as having a few beers and a bit. But I don't know about other countries. I think we're quite up there in the UK, as in the number of nice events that. I mean, the one that I went to in Durham, the Northern Bowl one that was organised. I mean, it's basically Matthew Whitaker and his partner Joe opening up their freeholding and inviting a load of friends round to have a social, and it's just so nice, isn't it, to be able to go to these events and and be in such a fantastic community because it is a community, and I love that aspect of it.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, one of the big parts of it for me is getting around the fire and everyone singing and playing instruments. That you're often
having a go. Well, that is my passion, Jeff. I'd say music is my passion, even though I'm a comb. I'm like a mole. My hands are massive, which built for shoveling, even with no space. But I mean, music is my passion, and any opportunity I get to be able to share my passion for it, I will do. But because you get this misconception of you're born musical, or and it doesn't have to be music; it can be any talent, or that's another thing actually. Talent's not a real word, or not a real thing, in my opinion. But anything that you're passionate about is doable. But I always thought, because I've got short, stubby, fat fingers, I've got no musical background. It put me off for years, and so I didn't start playing instruments till about 48. And I've always loved music, and so anyway, because I like Irish music, that was using my Irish background, I thought, what shall I'll have a go on. And we sort of do me and another guy at work actually egged each other on to get a banjo to play Irish music, and I got the wrong banjo to start with. I got a plectrum banjo. There's no instrument. It's sort of an instrument that's died out almost. So I had a false start, and anyway, I eventually settled on clawhammer banjo, and it led me towards old time American music, and that's the sort of genre that I sort of learnt the musical style of, but it's like a global thing about if you've got a passion. I always say to people, I do bore people a little bit by trying to share my my passion. And if I identify a musical passion with somebody, I really try to encourage them to have a go at a musical instrument, because there's lots of musical instruments in second-hand shops and on flea markets and that. And it's because it's not easy. There's no reason why, if evolutionary reason, that we can form chords, or we can do these funny dances with his hands.
Yeah.
You know, one hand doing one dance and the other hand doing a different dance at the same time. So you're shocking your body by asking him to do that. So a lot of people, this is impossible. How much can I have for this guitar, please, Mr. Pawn Shop Man? You know, so they end up gathering dust, or they get sold on. But there's reasons why there are musicians or people who play music, because again, it's like with the art thing. I'm not a musician, but I like playing musical instruments. If you've got passion, then you've got persistence, and then if you've got passion and persistence, you'll get through those walls. You won't be able to walk past it without picking it up and I've got to have a little go. You know, it carries you a long way, and a musical instrument, to me, it's just such a lovely companion to have. If you're able to just pick up basically a wooden box with a few metal strings on it and play music, there's always going to be somebody who's going to get something from it, you know. Mm-hmm. So it's a lovely thing to share. And again, it goes back to what you said, Jeff, around the fire. It's a share. It's sharing, and you know, like the other night, we were all around there, and somebody started singing a song. None of us knew it. Oh, there's a repeating chorus, and then before you know it, we're all singing along, and you know, those times are. I always say, you know, real items are just a quick endorphin hit for you, or whatever it is. Yeah. But experience is what life's about, really, you know. So yeah, to create those experiences with music, and also I mean, it is a difficult thing, is to learn music, but you get such a reward from just pushing through those little barriers that have been. My first goal was to actually, when I picked up the fiddle, because I've learned the fiddle as well as banjo and guitar, was to get a note out of it initially. How can I, you know, if I can get a note out of this thing, I'll die a happy man. Then after that, I've got a note out of it. Then if I could get one tune out of this, I could die a happy man. And then, you know, you keep pushing those goals forward, and they get a little bit bigger. But the overarching one at the end of the day was, right, I want to play music with other people and just be able to, at tempo, and be able to add something to it. That is my goal, which keeps driving me on to keep doing it. But like moving back to the mental health benefits of the slow working with the Greenwood thing. There's a lot of benefits from. I'm saying music's my passion, but from immersing yourself into something that's forcing you to think out of your comfort zone. So, because it's good. I mean, both of my parents died of Alzheimer's, and I watched them both die of Alzheimer's over there on both occasions, and it's not very nice. But my dad was a coal miner, same as me, and he retired just after the miners' strike. In his early 50s, but he didn't engage with anything that forced you to have to think after that. Maximum a crossword, and I've done quite a lot of research. I'm quite interested in the learning process in neurosciences, which sounds strange for a coal miner who underground at 16, but I am, and I've looked into it. I've done quite a lot of reading on it. And one of the amazing things that I did discover is that if you keep learning things at any age, and it doesn't matter what age you are, that's something totally different. So, like, I don't know, you wake up one morning and say, right, I'm going to learn Japanese. Mm-hmm. Something that's so the steeper the initial learning curve, the better, because not only do you stave off losing brain cells, you can actually, at any age, grow new brain cells. I was amazed by this. Because and whatever new thing you start with, you've always got a really steep gradient of initial knowledge, whereby you're learning lots of new things. There's a new alphabet, a new scale, everything's new, and it really does force your brain to process. And it needs extra capacity then, so you do grow these extra neurons. And that book that I gave to you just now, there's a guy there that's luckily for me and Jeff, who both play the banjo, is a banjo player who's a neuroscientist who gives you lots and lots of really fantastic information about how the brain works and how you can manipulate the brain's elasticity into learning anything. If you start with that passion and that and thus persistence, passion and persistence will get you a hell of a long way than anything. And then it gives you loads of and you can possibly put in the addendum, the book that I'm speaking about.
Yeah, of course.
How good it is for you. And I'll just quickly reference one of the chapters that I was reading about, and it was about because it is sort of likening it to the banjo as a musical instrument, but his reference to that is learning speech subconsciously until it becomes a subconscious thing. Communication, language is the word. Is that visualization? Things like visualization. So even if you haven't got your instrument, if you're bored on a train or something like that, you can actually imagine playing through a tune in your mind, and your brain, it thinks it's doing that. So it's like having a free practice session, even when you haven't got your instrument with you.
Yeah.
Particularly if you go to bed, because most of your mental processing is done while you're asleep. So if you did 10 minutes practice of an instrument, or 10 minutes language learning, or 10 minutes doing your safe knife grips, whatever discipline you've chosen to have a go at, if you just do a small concentrated chunk, rather than doing lots of little disparate pieces, if you do one, if you are honing on one specific thing just before you go to bed, your brain, that's it's as though you're saying to your brain, right, this is what I want you to process for me, please.
Yeah,
I'll leave you with this. I'm gonna have a little rest now. You just work on this way. But so your 10 minutes of work while you're conscious, it gets multiplied while you're asleep. Most of your processing is done while you're not conscious. A lot of this stuff I was absolutely amazed by, which is why I think there's a lot of value in that book for people who are interested in, not just, I found it really interesting because I find the learning process really interesting, and how you can, become an efficient learner, space repetition, there's all sorts of things. And it's all about basically, you start off say there's snow, and you put a bicycle wheel through. And so you've got a little path where you can barely see it, and it's like A to B of how to play a musical scale, say. So you go through next time, and you've got a thicker tire on, and each time you do it, it gets a deeper thorough. And these are the neurological pathways that have been created, and they get stronger and stronger, such that eventually they become subconscious. And that's why, when me and you have been sat watching Myron Sharif Adams playing his fiddle around, and without even thinking about it, and Ben Pitt, playing their instruments without even thinking about it, because they've done it that many times. This neurological pathway has it's become a subconscious action, like a child learning a language. They've just been phonetically exposed to so much in context conversation that it's not like they've got to say, "Oh, right, so this before I actually speak, I've got to make sure I get my tenses correctly, and I've got to get the syntax absolutely." But it's just spontaneous, and that's how learning things in a good in a correct way or in an efficient way can make you do anything, enable you to do anything really. If you've got the passion and the persistence to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because children, if they want to eat, they've got to learn to that's a given into the passion and persistence is there.
Yeah.
With language.
Have you got any tips on getting over sort of plateaus? Because I think that's the thing that in any sort of craft or instrument, just sort of learning a new.
And plateaus and log jams.
What's a log jam?
Well, as in, right. So I'll take it back to music again. Mm-hmm. So I can play this piece all the way through. Apart from there's one little bloody phrase halfway through it that I always trip up over, and it throws me out. And with the log jams like that, it's just a matter of isolating. Instead of starting right at the back of the tune, and keep going through it, and then okay, you're going to do that one. Then 10 minutes later, the tricky little piece, the tricky little passage, and then start again, and just isolate that. And that book he mentions this, and it's like when you're trying to get a ball round, I call that game.
Oh, like the marble.
Yeah, getting a marble. Yeah. And there's always one point whereby you drop it through the hole. Oh Christ, that's a tricky little area.
Yeah.
Instead of taking the ball right to the beginning, what he suggests is take it to the area just before the tricky bit, and just keep working on that little area that are tripping you up, and take that back to the music. Try and find out like a cut and paste of the that contains the area that you are struggling with, and just and just concentrate on that. Forget everything else, and then reinsert the tricky bit into the whole thing once you find it out. Now, with learning things, I'm talking about log jams here rather than plateaus. But when you're struggling with something, the thing to do really is to work out, try and slow things down, and try and work out what you've got to know what you're doing wrong, or you'll never ever fix it. So try and work out what the problem is, and concentrate on that, and be slow, be deliberate, and just keep doing that over and over again until that becomes an automatic, and that almost becomes the easy part of whatever, because you've overdone that one. With like plateaus and things, again, it's sort of, if it's a plateau as in I'm bored with this, or I can't take it. You can always come from a different angle, do things in a different way, or park it up and then come back to it later. I've always tackled plateaus head on me, because like when I was learning the guitar, I found it, well, everybody finds it difficult to move on to bar chords. Open chords, they tend to pick them up quite quickly. And you see a lot of people, the F chords, any musician, F in F. F in F. On a guitar, that is. And actually, funnily enough, it's the hardest one of the banjo as well, because of the notes that are involved. But with the bar chords, I found it very difficult to form it. But the thing is, when you're practicing, or when you're learning things, the more learning is done on the outer edge of your comfort zone. So you get 10 times more benefit of working on things that you're not very good at, rather than just keep doing things that you are good at, and that's just making that furrow I was talking about just gets deeper and deeper, but it don't get don't get any further forward. So work on the things that you're weak at, and also with the music, when I found plateaus with difficult technical things, I'd insert it into a song or a tune or something, and so there's it's like that the water's running. It's not going to stop for you. Right, you go through that tricky chord, it might sound poor for a while, because the more you do it, it gets better, because I know a lot of people. I'll take you back to F chord, but there's like a cheating F, and they'll never have a go at doing a full F, F bar chord, which really opens up the instrument to you if you can do that. But what about you? What are your thoughts on plateaus? Have you?
I mean, yeah, certainly on the banjo, I find like knowing the next thing to play.
Yes,
I think that's a difficult.
Yes,
one. And I think that's probably if you're spoon carving or bowl turn or whatever. Like, how do you develop and
not jump too far ahead, such that you're leaving a gap in between. Yeah. I think there's a lot to be said for finding something. If you're playing a piece or you're doing something that you're not really over bothered about, it doesn't really get your creative juices going. If you want to try and do something that does, try and get to the same goal end, but maybe do a different tune or something that engages you more. That comes from a slightly different angle. But I must admit, because I'm so passionate about it, I've never, so far anyway, I haven't hit plateaus where I thought, I can't.
Yeah.
I must admit, I do have confidence issues. Mm-hmm. When I'm in the privacy of my own home and there's no external timekeeper, and I'm playing something musical and I'm super duper relaxed. I've got really bad posture. If my fiddle teacher was there, she'd be like, "Whoa, and I can play fantastic. It sounds great. But nobody's ever going to see that because I'm not. And when I come and there's people that are I hasten to say they're better than me. They're just further down the line than me. They're more experienced than me. And I thought, I can't quite get in there because I can't play at that speed. It does. I come away sometimes and I do have my confidence knocked. But you've got to get back on the horse. And the guy in the book that I'm talking about there, he says, and I find it very hard to do this, but he says, record yourself. This is a big deal for me. But he says, record yourself and video record yourself. Because it gives you feedback on what because what you hear in your head when you're playing music is not what somebody else hears, because your ears are inside your head, which is everything's rattling about. If you're singing, the perception that your mind gets by your auditory system is different to other people's because it's within you. It's quite complex biologically, but yeah, it gives you a really good feedback on what's not right or what is right, what you thought wasn't right. It gives you instant feedback, but also it's that reminder. It's logged in time of where you were, and I see some old video of me. That's why the word talent. People say, so talented to do this, that, other. But they haven't been with you when you've spent all these hundreds and hundreds of hours working really hard. It's like almost talent's like saying, "Well, it's all right for you because you're talented."
Yeah, you haven't put
they haven't been there when
exactly
the sweat and the tears. It's work. Some people have got an aptitude or they've got some physical attributes that makes things a little bit easier. But when you say talent about everybody doing something that's a tacit skill that they've developed, it's because they've put a lot of hard work in. Some people might have a more creative imagination than other people, but technically they've had to put the time in and the effort and everything. So that's why talent's a bit of almost a misnomer to me. Like,
there's been a few people I've been talking to this weekend where I've sort of watch them develop over time.
Yes,
through Instagram.
Yes, at different rates.
Yeah, but there's been a few people who I could see that their artistic creativity was beyond their talent.
Yes, the technical. Yeah,
at that moment.
Yeah,
then,
sure. Yeah,
now they can do what they're visualizing.
Yeah,
and it's
likewise. Yeah, and that is really great to see. Yeah, I'm sort of. coming the other way because, well, I've got loads of ideas. I'm a bit of an idea monster. I've got loads of ideas, and I'm better at ideas than I'm actually bringing them into actuality. You know, in fact, I'd like to. Pretty off. I've got all these ideas. Can you make I can't even draw it, but you know, I can sort of describe what I'm thinking. But yeah, I agree. To round that little bit off, what I was going to say was, you know, everybody's first spoon's crap.
Yep.
Everybody's, you know, if somebody says to me, "Oh, you're so talented on that fiddle," which I'm trying to say that without laughing. You're so talented playing the fiddle, blah blah blah. You know, I'll say, right, yeah, have a go. Just play a note, and whatever, you know, let them play a note. That's exactly what I was like when I first did it.
Yeah,
and it's the same, you know. But yeah, and everybody is on. Everybody's on the same line. If you pick if somebody just started this weekend and says, "Oh, what's that?" I'd like to have a go at that. And you show them I don't know if you've done it, mate. If you've shown them how to use a knife for the first time,
yeah,
they're at the point that you were at just X amount of years ago, and we'll all meet at the same point. But like you say, some people, and it's really affirming to see it when you see these the young people. You know, within really short space of time, you know they're going to be making your work look really amateur, which is great. You know, if I show somebody how to do something and then they take it on, and then you see work later and they say, I really appreciate you showing me that, John. Look what I'm making. It's fantastic, you know. And there's no jealousy or envy, and which is why I think we like all this sort of stuff, don't we? In fact, I don't know if you know, Jeff, but I've lent a fiddle out to somebody this weekend.
Have you?
Who I can see who's really passionate about music.
Oh, nice.
And and then that's what I did with Lee Stoffel. I lent Lee my banjo, and I've lent a few instruments out because I love them to be in people's hands. So if that's the barrier to them being able to start, I'd rather unlock that barrier. You know what I mean? So I've lent a fiddle to somebody, and if I can't imagine anything but give me more pleasure if that person didn't come back in the future, sometime in the future, and say, "Oh, this is where," and that you know, plays me a tune or something like that. Mm-hmm. And which happened with Lee actually. And it just gives me so much pleasure. I just love sharing with the music and that. I don't have loads of knowledge. I ain't got loads of experience, but I'll share what I do know. What I do know, please, you know, if somebody says, "Oh, John," I'll share anything I know, and nothing gives me more pleasure than getting somebody looking at you, and you can tell when they look at you that they are genuinely engaged and they really want to know, and that's why I lent the fiddle out to a mutual friend.
I mean, well, it was your encouragement at I think this first Spoon Fest I went to.
Right.
When
was it?
You came, I think somehow we talked about banjo playing.
Right, okay.
And I'd hit a definite plateau.
Right.
And you were like, try this.
Yeah, well,
like switch to clawhammer.
It's quite dangerous. If I know that you've got and you might have experienced, but I'll start, what tunes are you learning? Yeah. So, you know, I'll learn that as well on the fiddle so we can play. I can be a bit, you know, overbearing if I'm not careful, but I love encouraging people to do things like that. And, you know, because craft and music aren't my living or anything, I would consider myself an encourager. I hopefully anyway. And you know, like I say, I tried to walk the tightrope between being a pain in the ass, you know, jumping on people. Come on, Jeff. You know, I know you can. And, you know, this is a guy who's retired, who's really time rich, who's telling people who've got like, you know, 12-hour day shifts to work, and then they just want to go to bed. Guy, it's only 10 minutes a day. If you do 10 minutes a day, you'll get there. You know, I can't. You know, I've got to be a bit careful, but no, I love it, mate.
What a lovely man. Thank you, John, so much for making the time to chat. I'm so inspired. I've been playing loads of music again recently, having listened back to this conversation. It's really, really lovely. Thank you. Big thanks also to everyone at Brookhouse Woods for both organising the bowl gathering, which was, as usual, a highlight of my year, but also for letting us record in one of their beautiful cabins. We were in the Journeyman cabin, which lots of my friends actually worked on. So it was really, really lovely to sit in there and see all of their beautiful work. It's a stunning woodland getaway, and I'll put links to both the cabins and all of the great courses available at Brookhouse Woods in the show notes. Also in the show notes, there are links to all of the craftspeople who got a mention. Plow into those. Links also to green woodworking events that were mentioned, Bodger's Ball, Spoonfest, Spoontown, Bowl Gathering. I'll also put a link to the Spoon Hoolie, which is the Scottish one. Also, links to books that were mentioned, the Swedish Carving Techniques, which was for a long time the kind of Bible of green woodworking, and the Brain Joe book, which is about the science of learning. So if you want to delve deeper, then make sure to check out those links. On the subject of books, I have gone back through all of the episodes so that now anytime you click on a link, it'll go to, if possible, the Hive website. Hive is a bookshop in the UK. They send a percentage of any sales to an actual independent bookstore on the high street. So if you can't go to the real independent shop, I think Hive is a good alternative. I would say that obviously go for secondhand books first. In the instances when that might not be possible or suitable, then I think Hive is the best option. Also now, if you click on the links to Hive from the website or the show notes, then I will get a little tiny kickback if you buy something. So you can support the podcast by just getting a nice thing. What else? Oh yeah, a reminder that if you want more John Mullaney, there is a bonus 20 minutes or so where he discusses his future development and aspirations. So if you want that, then head to patreon.com/building sustainability. Again, link in the show notes. And finally, if you have enjoyed this conversation and you've listened right the way to the end, as you clearly have, can you please take a second just to share it so that more people might get to hear it? I'm really trying to cut down on my social media time, and one of the things that's going to drop off is being able to promote the podcast. So yeah, anything you can do would be greatly appreciated. That's it. Thank you so much. Until next time. Bye-bye.